Hey my friends, I have a really good video for you guys today. You really want to watch this one till the end. I should have made this one part 1, I think, but it is what it is. So thank you so much for joining me. Guys, please like and subscribe. It takes 2 seconds to subscribe. It doesn't cost you a penny, but it means the world to me and it really helps my channel. So guys, let's get into it. My friend, after this video, if you have a cat or a dog sitting next to you, even the animal will have no doubt that Project MBridge is the XRP Ledger. And Project MBridge involves like 7 central banks. It's not a joke. It's like everything else that's sitting on that shared ledger. So you really don't want to miss this one. Alright, so let's look at the first PDF here, right on the BIS website. That's the Bank for International Settlements. That's the central bank for all central banks. So this is one of their projects of the Innovation Hub project. So right here, Project MBridge reached the minimum viable product stage in 2024. But what I want to show you here is the project aimed to explore a multi-central bank digital currency CBDC platform shared among participating central banks. So this is a shared ledger, as I showed you in part 1. So this is a shared platform built on distributed ledger technology. So it's a shared among central banks and commercial banks. Keep that in mind. I'm going to show you some stuff later on, more at the end of this video. All right, so built on a distributed ledger technology. So it's a shared platform. It's shared and it's built on distributed ledger technology. So it's a shared ledger to enable instant cross-border payments and settlement. All right, let's watch this here. So this is the document from the BIS. So this is the Innovation Hub. This is the PDF. It's 59 pages, I think. It is, I'm not sure. It's many pages anyways. And it's the BIS Innovation Hub and it's Project MBridge, connecting economies through CBDCs. Let's see how many times it mentions the shared ledger. And later on, I'm going to show you 100 million % proof in 100 different angles. I'm going to show you that the shared ledger is the XRP Ledger. And I'm going to, oh my goodness. Stay till the end, guys. Stay till the end. Oh boy. All right. So let's look at this here. Shared ledger. All right. So first spot here, it talks about extending access to central bank money directly to foreign participants and conducting transactions on a shared ledger. Now, let me go back. If you haven't watched my other videos, you're going to see it in this video. Gilbert Verdian, when he was talking about the regulated liability network, he said, we also partnered with R3, who are bringing the shared ledger where all of the tokenized assets will reside. Gilbert Verdian said, we provided the programmability, interoperability, and custom APIs for the RLN, that's the Regulated Liability Network, and we also partnered with R3, who is bringing in the shared ledger where all of the tokenized assets reside. Not some, all of them. Then Tony McLaughlin from Citibank, that's always sitting on stage with Gilbert Verdian, said in the interview, Citibank episode 1, I can't remember what the name was, but I'll show you that later. He said if you can put all the central banks, commercial banks, and fintechs on a shared ledger, that's the Regulated Liability Network. So here, Project MBridge is talking about central banks on a shared ledger. Not one of the shared ledgers, not partly a shared ledger, not one of many, on a shared ledger. Gilbert Verdian said they're bringing over the shared ledger, as in one. The shared ledger. There's only one. So a shared ledger requires further exploration of policy, data privacy, and governance considerations. So here, so it's mentioned 9 times in this BIS documents, a shared ledger, by providing a shared platform on which participants can conduct peer-to-peer payments directly in the safety of the CBDCs of multiple jurisdictions. MBridge has the potential to, they always say potential, it's complete BS. It's BS. It's not based on maybe potential, it's just a concept. No. They're doing it. It's already been tested 100 million times. It's complete BS. They're lying to you because they know some of us are going to read these documents. We're going to be digging, trying to see what these guys are doing. It's not maybe, could, maybe, would. No, it's happening, guys. It's happened. It's already set in stone for a long time. Anyways, I'm going to go on that rant again. So here, by providing a shared platform on which participants conduct peer-to-peer payments, and this is showing central banks, sorry, that's a bit small here, but let me try to zoom that in. Now I want to show you something very important here. Notice how you have the central bank, central bank, central bank, central bank. United Emirates Arabs, The CN, I think that's China, I can't remember, Hong Kong and Thailand. These are the central banks, and then underneath you have the commercial banks. It's very important. I'm going to show you something later. So remember, it's always the central banks are sitting closer to the unified ledger, shared ledger. You have the shared ledger, then you have the central bank, and then you have the commercial bank. The commercial bank is always a bit further from that unified ledger, shared ledger than the central bank. Remember that, but I'll show you again later. Don't worry about that for now. So now, shared ledger, a shared ledger, again, shared among the participants. Again here, a shared ledger. Right here, sorry. Data are only shared on a need-to-need basis. And here, blockchain and shared to all participants. But you saw a shared ledger. Shared ledger. By providing a shared platform on which participants can conduct peer-to-peer payments. And they talk about DLT, distributed ledger. So it's a shared ledger, like I showed you before. It's a shared ledger. Keep that in mind. Shared ledger. It's always a shared ledger. Gilbert Verdian said, partner with R3 who's bringing in the shared ledger. Keep that in mind. Very important. It's always a shared ledger. Or it's a regulated liability network, or it's a unified ledger concept, regulated settlement network. There's 5 words that they're using to describe this shared ledger, unified ledger, and Finternet. But I'm going to show you in a minute. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing, guys. Okay, so this is Graham Bright. So he's with Axiom Bank right now. I think he went to Ripple for a while, I'm not sure. But he was with Swift for 20 years. And in a other interview, he said, I've been with Swift for 20 years. Swift runs through my blood. And he talked about how XRP could run on Swift, or Swift could run on XRP. But this is the same guy. Don't know if you've seen that, but listen to what he says here, my friends. You do not want to miss this video, my friends. All right, so let's listen to this guy here.
Okay, so let's be very clear what Ripple is as far as we're concerned. Remember, it's a technology company, not only the provider of the crypto, the XRP currency as such, the digital asset. So from a technology point of view of a company, the whole of the point of view is linking up different players in the markets, the financial markets, to ensure there's a very rapid, guaranteed, transparent, frictionless movement of funds underlined with the XRP currency.
So he said Ripple is all about interlinking different jurisdictions, different players. What is MBridge? It's about linking, right? It's linking different CBDCs, different nations together. Continue listening here. It's going to get better.
But what that also means is that there are 2 particular services being offered. The first one being the X-Current, where we're able to pay away immediately across Ripple in real time. Now, when we look at traditional payment methods, we're looking at perhaps hours or days in which to actually facilitate a payment anywhere in the world. And that means it has to go through a correspondent banking relationship. Not every bank deals with every other bank, which means, again, there's a causation or a link between a number of different players in the market. That takes time, could be money, and in some instances, a number of weeks can go past where a payment is trying to struggle its way through a link of banks who don't necessarily have relationships with each other. And banks being what they are, there is money to be made by holding on to large amounts of money, and there's interest to be generated. So banks are not necessarily always very keen on disposing funds as quickly as they might be. What we're looking at using Ripple is an association, a network of financial institutions who've signed up to a rulebook. There are standards, there's a transparency, and a way to real-time move.
So he said the reason we're looking at Ripple is that there's that network of bank, that's RippleNet. There's that network of bank that have all signed up to a rule book. And there's transparency and everything is up and up. But he said they all signed up to a rule book. A lot of people don't realize, but that RippleNet is AML compliant, anti-money laundering compliant. It's KYC compliant, know your customer, which are the 2 major regulations for international transfers. It's completely compliant for those 2 regulations, which is the main regulations for global payments and transfers. Plus, RippleNet has a rule book that all of the banks and payment companies that sign up with RippleNet, they agree to that rule book. A lot of people don't realize that. So while Ripple was being sued in this fake lawsuit and making everybody panic, I'm not sure if you've watched my other video where I explain why I'm absolutely convinced that this lawsuit is a sham, but you might be thinking right now I'm crazy, oh, it's a fake lawsuit. But if you listen to what I said in one of my videos, if you heard that, you're probably thinking, yeah, no, I know what he means, he's not that crazy. But anyways, I might make a video just on that one day. But again, while Ripple was being sued, they were fully compliant. Ripple was not worried. That's BS. It's all theater. Because RippleNet was fully KYC compliant, fully KYC and anti-money laundering, AML, anti-money laundering compliant. Plus it had a rule book that all of the banks signed up to. All right. So watch this, my friend. So this is Project MBridge. This is on the BIS website. I'm still on the BIS website here. Project MBridge. All right. Right here. In tandem, the project steering committee has created a bespoke governance and legal framework, including a rule book tailored to match the platform's unique decentralized nature. Isn't that interesting? So we've got this guy from Swift. He was at Swift for 20 years. He's saying how Ripple has a rule book that can be trusted. It's fully compliant. It's got a legal framework. That's what he said. There's governance, legal framework, and a rule book. He just said that about Ripple. And here, the MBridge project has a rule book. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Now, in the first video, in part 1 of the MBridge XRP Ledger series that I launched a few days ago, I showed how the MBridge has everything is identical to the XRP Ledger. Right? Even from the way that they issue CBDCs, everything is absolutely identical. Everything about MBridge is absolutely identical to RippleNet and the XRP Ledger and so on and so forth. But now, again, even more evidence, there's a rulebook just like RippleNet. Isn't that interesting? So now I'm on the Ripple website. Let me zoom this in. Tiny bit. What do we have here? Benefits of RippleNet. One simple integration. Standard rules. All network members adhere to the RippleNet rulebook, a common global framework with functional standards and SLA. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so we're going to continue listening to him. So he continues, he talks about Ripple for a while, all the benefits of the Ripple current, all that stuff. Now we're going to continue listening. I skipped it about a minute here. Listen to what he says here about liquidity, and then I'm going to go back to the BIS document, show you every time it talks about liquidity provisioning. Listen to this carefully, guys.
America, Africa as well, so that players in that particular market are not constricted by having to have dollars or moving funds into different currencies as well. So that's the X-current part of the system, the ability to pay away in a certain currency in real time and being able to see exactly where your payment is taking place. The next one, X-Rapid, is, so for a different type of service, is where we're looking at the liquidity levels and the amount of capital needed in order to do a transaction to a different country. Here, what we're using, instead of switching into dollars to pay a dollar nostro, is with locally, I would perhaps take Nigerian Naira into XRP. XRP is the underlying asset, and at the other end, the other party switches from XRP into its local currency. So what we're looking at is liquidity instantly being available through a vast amount of XRP currency in order to facilitate local transactions being able to pay away into local markets. And that happens again in real time with a guarantee that there's no fluctuation on the currency as that particular digital asset moves across. Remember, it's in real time as well.
So he's talking about Ripple X-Rapid. You can have liquidity provisioning, like you can see it's instant liquidity. It's got all these advantages for liquidity. Now we're going to go back to the same document. This is a BIS Innovation Hub. It's the exact same one I had earlier. So we've confirmed that MBridge has a rule book and RippleNet has a rule book. Now we're going to look about liquidity, because he said the advantage of using Ripple X-Rapid is for liquidity provisioning, right? It's about liquidity. Being able to access liquidity, monitoring liquidity, and so on and so forth. All right, let's see here. Liquidity. Settlement corresponding bank occurs in commercial bank credit representing a liability of the commercial bank. As such, it carries the associated credit and liquidity risk, where settlement funds may not be available in the event of illiquidity and insolvency. Again here, same one. To access liquidity. Access to liquidity. See here, for example, central banks needed to ensure sufficient liquidity was available in local currency for transactions. It's all talking here about the benefits of Project MBridge. And it's talking about the difference between using the correspondent banking, which is what Ripple replaces. So it compares using correspondent banking, the old system, versus using RippleNet and the XRP Ledger for liquidity. It's a comparable here. This is what the document's all about. MBridge, Project MBridge. So again, central banks needed to ensure sufficient liquidity. Now, talks about liquidity on the platform. So as a result, many banks relied on requesting foreign currency against pre-existing balances in nostro accounts. Exactly what he was talking about earlier. I should have actually let him talk for 10 minutes because this is exactly what he explained. The nostro-vostro accounts, how the system is obsolete, correspondent banks, not needing to go through correspondent banks, and you can just access straight liquidity. That's what he was saying. So let's read this here. Given the need to rely on existing correspondent banking relationships for liquidity, the real value nature of transactions and the short time span of the pilot transactions took place for the most part between banks with pre-existing business. So FXPV, it is therefore important that liquidity provision and management functions, along with measures to facilitate FX dealing on bridge, are appropriately integrated into the platform in the future. What is XRapid? First he talked about XCurrent. Then he said about XRapid is about having access to that liquidity and being able to monitor liquidity and so on and so forth. It's exactly what it's saying here. It's about integrating. Important that liquidity provision and management functions, along with measures to facilitate FX dealings on bridge, are appropriately integrated into the platform. So it's important that XVIA exists on this platform. Don't worry, because this is the XRP Ledger. MBridge is the XRP Ledger, my friend. Just like every other project that you see that talks about the same things, right? Instant liquidity, instant settlement, cross-border, instant finality, blah, 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 blah. After a while, you just get so sick and tired of their lies and their BS. So don't mind my frustration. Just after a while, you just get so fed up. Lie after lie, deception, manipulation, twisting this, twisting that, using 100 different words, 100 different terminologies, just so my friends cannot figure out what is going on. This is how they operate, these guys. They want to rule the world without you knowing. They only want you to find out they're ruling the world when it's too late, when you're a slave. That's when they're okay with you figuring out what the heck they're doing. All right, so here, so again, liquidity here, liquidity. It's all about liquidity, relationship for liquidity. So here, suggestions for improvement included introducing FX market makers, liquidity providers to facilitate FX dealing on bridge. Liquidity management tools, isn't that interesting? What is XRapid? It's a liquidity management tool. Interoperability with domestic systems and application programming interfaces, APIs. What's Interledger Protocol do? An API with XRP. Now, when it talks about interoperability between payment systems, that's Interledger. It's not the same as Quant. Quant is interoperability between kind of any platform and legacy systems and blockchain, and any blockchain as well. But the Interledger Protocol is a very specialized protocol for interconnecting payment networks. And that's why when you see the BIS documents, it always shows the Interledger Protocol connecting the unified ledgers. Why? Because the XRP is a unified ledger. I'm going to prove that in a minute. Now, remember earlier how I showed you that the BIS document talks about a shared ledger? It mentions it like 15 times or 9 times. A shared ledger, the shared ledger, a shared ledger, or a shared platform. All right, so we're going to listen here. It's going to be 7-8 minutes. This is very important for you to listen to. So this is a clip of one of my other videos where I explain and I show clearly that the shared ledger, unified ledger, regulated liability network, Finternet, all those things are the XRP ledgers. Very important for you to listen to this. Bear with me 1 second here. Oh, and I wanted to tell you something. Oh yeah, that's right. I want to ask you to subscribe. I wanted to remind you to subscribe. Click. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. I'm going to keep reminding you every 10 minutes. You might as well subscribe. That way the video won't be as long, right? I won't be harassing you every 10 minutes. You know what? This guy's going to stop bugging me finally. I finally subscribe. He can just go on with the video. No, I'm just teasing you guys. Appreciate your support, guys. I really appreciate it. All right, so let's listen to the GOAT. Let's see what he says here. You really don't want to miss this part. So I'm going to rant. So like I said, it's a clip of one of my other videos. And so it's going to go like 6-7 minutes, but you absolutely need to watch this. It's probably one of the most important parts that people have liked about my content. Just one sec here. Things. So right here, Gilbert Verdian, when he's talking about the regulated liability network, he says, we also partnered with R3, who is bringing in the shared ledger where all of the tokenized assets will reside. So he just finished saying that they provide the programmability, interoperability, and the banking grade API for the project, and now he continues to talk.
We're also partnering with R3 on the project, which are bringing in the shared ledger where all the tokenized assets will reside.
So Quant is partnering with R3, who's bringing the shared ledger where all of the tokenized assets reside. Tony McLaughlin from Citibank said that when he was talking about the Regulated Liability Network, City Digital Dispatch, Episode 1, Regulated Liability Network, this was about maybe 6 weeks ago. He was talking with Ryan Rugg, Head of Digital Assets for Treasury and Trade for Citi. This is where he talks about 25,000 data centers, 25,000 databases, separate islands of data. He's talking about banks, how they all have different data centers. And shared ledger and blockchain, you've got a common database, essentially. So the question is there a possibility to migrate the traditional banking system? So take the same kinds of institution, take the central banks, commercial banks, and fintechs, and migrate them onto a shared ledger. What did Gilbert Verdian said? He said the shared ledger. We're partnering with R3. They're bringing in the shared ledger. And here he says, and that's what the regulated liability network essentially is, the RLN. So now we know that the shared ledger and the regulated liability network is exactly the same thing. So this is a document from Deutsche Bundesbank in July 2023. In this document, they're going to admit that the regulated liability network, when it was originally mentioned by Citi, it was actually called the Regulated Internet of Value. Let's start at the beginning. In essence, the Regulated Liability Network is an interoperable network of commercial banks and central bank liabilities. The aim of the infrastructure is to improve national and international payments by using distributed ledger technology. The concept originates in the article entitled The Regulated Internet of Value, published by Citigroup in 2021. So the first time was ever mentioned, the Regulated Liability Network, the first time was ever mentioned, they called it the Regulated Internet of Value. But they stopped saying that. They said, we can't call it the Regulated Internet of Value because everybody's going to know that's XRP Ledger. That's Ripple and the XRP Ledger. So we can't call it that. So then they started calling it the Regulated Liability Network. And for the US, they call it the Regulated Settlement Network. Or they say Shared Ledger Technology, a Unified Ledger, and they're changing names every time so that we can't figure out what the heck it is. Oh, is XRP Ledger involved? Is it Quant? No. So bear with me. So watch right here. Right here. The Bank for International Settlements, BIS, describes the idea of a common programmable platform on which tokenized forms of money circulate as holding great promise. Instead of Regulated Liability Network, instead of RLN, the BIS, the Bank for International Settlements, uses the term Unified Ledger. Let me say that again. Instead of Regulated Liability Network, the Bank for International Settlement uses the term Unified Ledger and stresses the importance of governance of a common platform in which the central banks would have to play an important role. In a position paper, the German bank. So now, this document is proving that the BIS calls the Regulated Liability Network, they call it the Unified Ledger. So now we've got confirmation, if you've been following carefully here, the shared ledger, Gilbert Verdian said they partnered with R3, who's bringing the shared ledger. Tony McLaughlin confirmed that the shared ledger and the Regulated Liability Network is the same thing. I showed you a document saying that the Regulated Liability Network and the Regulated Internet of Value, technically the Internet of Value, is the same thing, which Ripple built the Internet of Value. We know it's Ripple. So shared ledger, Regulated Liability Network, and the Internet of Value, called the Regulated Internet of Value, is all the same thing. Now I've just showed you in this document right here that the Unified Ledger and the Regulated Liability Network is the same thing as well. So all four are the same. Shared Ledger, Regulated Liability Network, Regulated Internet of Value, and the Unified Ledger are all the same thing. Got it? Got it, guys? Good? Keep watching, my friends. All right, so in this document here, it says right here in blue, the Regulated Liability Network, it's a bit cut off there, the way that it was copied, I'm not sure why, but the Regulated Liability Network could bring several benefits. For example, the RLN may offer potential for a new global settlement infrastructure based on regulated issuers and instruments that could support both domestic and cross-border use cases. Isn't that interesting? Cross-border use cases. Where did we hear that a trillion times? XRP Ledger, right? Ripple. By including central bank money from multiple jurisdictions, it has the potential to create a global real-time gross settlement. So the regulated liability network has the potential to create a global real-time gross settlement capability. Global real-time gross settlement. Global RTGS. So now we know that the shared ledger, regulated liability network, regulated Internet of Values, technically the Internet of Value, the unified ledger, and the global real-time gross settlement, the global RTGS, are all the same thing. Here in this document, when it's saying that it has the potential to create a global real-time gross settlement, has the potential, they're lying to you here. It's not just potential. It is creating it. It's already created. But as I told you before, these guys always talk as if it's theoretical. It's a theory. It's a concept. We're testing it. We're going to see if it could work. The global real-time gross settlement system was created years ago. They've been planning it for almost 20 years. I'm going to show you a document here. So it's already, according to the timelines that we've seen from the Hyperledger Foundation, it's already fully laid out right now as we speak. 2025, it's laid out. So when they're saying it could, they're lying to you here. It's all they know how to do, these guys, is lie and deceive. It's all they know how to do, the central bankers. So this is a document I showed you before. This came from the Hyperledger Foundation. It is now called the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust. It's the LF Decentralized Trust is what it's called now. This document surfaced about 8 years ago, give or take. It's almost impossible to find it now. So I do apologize if the document is chopped up there. It's just because I had to merge all the screenshots that I had taken from this document because I can't find it anymore. So again, this is pretty much the most powerful consortium in the world involving all the central banks, commercial bank, tech companies, fintechs, corporations, and on. And now it's called the Decentralized Trust. This is a document that came out. It was specifically referring R3, Ripple, and the XRP Ledger, and the Interledger Protocol. So it was Ripple, R3, and the Interledger Protocol were the main players, technically the main players in building this Internet of Value. So ILP, and remember, like I talked in my other videos, when we see the documents coming from the BIS, the Bank for International Settlements, we always see that it's the Interledger Protocol that's connecting the unified ledgers. But for now, I just want to jump right here so we don't lose our train of thought here. So this document showed that the global RTGS, remember how I told you this document, the BIS was saying that the regulated liability network could become the global real-time gross settlement. What do you have here, my friends? And I know I showed this for you guys that have seen this before. This is for the people that haven't seen it. So I do apologize for those who've already watched the video, but this is very important to show, because I didn't show it this way. I showed it a bit differently last time. So the global RTGS is the XRP Ledger right here. And you have the Interledger Protocol, ILP. So the central banks, the RTGS system, all the central banks and the commercial banks, local payments, are connected to the global RTGS, which is the XRP Ledger. They're connected via the Interledger Protocol, ILP. And at the bottom here, it says that the Interledger Protocol will enable financial institutions and central banks to make their existing infrastructure and processes interoperable with other currencies, asset classes, and the XRP Ledger, the global liquidity marketplace, and the global decentralized RTGS. So right here, this document is showing clearly that the XRP Ledger is the global RTGS. And the document I just showed you said that the regulated liability network could become the global RTGS, which is the XRP Ledger. So now we know that the shared ledger, Gilbert Verdian said they partnered with R3 for the shared ledger, where all of the tokenized assets will reside. We know that the shared ledger, the RLN, is the same thing, because Tony McLaughlin said that. Then we know that it's also called the Regulated Internet of Value. And we also know that the BIS, when they talk about the Regulated Liability Network or the shared ledger or Internet of Value, they call it the Unified Ledger. We have another document. It also says that the BIS also says that the Regulated Liability Network, or the Unified Ledger, same thing, has the potential to become a global RTGS. And here I have a document showing that the XRP Ledger is the global RTGS. And let me show you another document So this document from the BIS, we always see this document everywhere. This is the Finternet, financial internet. They're calling the Finternet now because they don't want to say Internet of Value. So instead of saying Internet of Value, everybody knows it's Ripple. They call it the Finternet, financial internet, Internet of Value, financial value, financial Internet of Value. They call it the Finternet. You see here they call it Unified Interledger Protocol now. Like I said, it's the Interledger Protocol. There is no other Interledger Protocol. There's only one, and it's Ripple, the company who built the Interledger Protocol. So they can call it the FART Interledger Protocol. They can call it the PP Interledger Protocol. They can call it whatever the heck they want to try to deceive us. There's only one Interledger Protocol. It's Ripple that built it. The XRP Ledger is built on top of the Interledger Protocol, and the XRP Ledger has a decentralized exchange built on top of the XRP Ledger. Sorry, I said that very quickly. Sorry. The Interledger Protocol was built by Ripple. The XRP Ledger is built on top of the Interledger Protocol. So that's why you're seeing here the Unified Ledger being connected via the Interledger Protocol. So this is a better document. I should have showed you this one instead. So the Interledger Protocol is connecting Unified Ledger 1 to Unified Ledger 2. Unified Ledger 1, Unified Ledger 2. Because, as I explained before, the XRP Ledger has numerous private ledgers. Central banks are building their central bank digital currencies on private ledgers of the XRP Ledger. So they're like a carbon copy clone of the XRP Ledger. It has the same features as the XRP Ledger, except it's a private ledger. I used to say sidechains, but that's not the proper terminology. I shouldn't call it a sidechain. It's technically a private ledger. Some people would say it's still a sidechain, but I think the exact proper terminology is to say it's a private ledger, because sidechains are slightly different. And we see that from the interviews from Ripple. I showed that in other video, but that's why you see the Interledger Protocol connecting Unified Ledger 1 to Unified Ledger 2. And right here again, you're seeing what? You're seeing this would be a Unified Ledger here. So this would be the main Unified Ledger, the XRP Ledger. And then you would have, ILP here, ILP, and you have Central Bank, RTGS system, Bank of Japan, Target 2, Fedwire, which is the US. These are the central banks here, and their RTGS systems, central banks. So these are private ledgers, private ledgers, private ledger, private ledger. These are Unified Ledger, and this is the Interledger Protocol connecting to Unified Ledger. So private ledgers or shared ledger, you could call it private ledgers or Unified Ledgers, because again, they're a carbon copy clone of the XRP Ledger. So guys, just how massive do you think that the Ripple R3 partnership is based on? Alright, so I want to show you something else. Like I said, I showed you the document here. Was it here? How the BIS, this document here of MBridge, Project MBridge, mentions the shared ledger 9 times. A shared ledger, by providing a shared platform where participants and central banks can build their CBDCs of multiple jurisdictions. MBridge has the potential to alleviate many of the effort. On and on. It's describing Ripple technology to the T, and it's a shared ledger. And I just proved to you that the shared ledger is the XRP ledger. Now, if you're in the Quant community, what I want you to understand is Quant provides the programmability and the interoperability and custom APIs for the shared ledger. Quant provides the interoperability, allows all the legacy systems that exist to connect into the shared ledger, and not only the shared ledger, which is the XRP ledger, but all of the other blockchains as well. So when they're talking about the programmable Unified Ledger or programmable platform, Quant is providing the programmability. That is correct. Quant is providing the programmability for the Unified Ledger, for the Finternet, for the regulated liability network, for the shared ledger, which is the XRP ledger. It's all the XRP ledger. Quant is providing the programmability, but Quant is not the Unified Ledger. Quant is not the Finternet. Quant plays a crucial role, but Quant is not the Finternet. XRP is the Finternet. XRP is the Internet of Value, the financial Internet of Value. Quant is the Internet of Trust. Quant is the Internet of Trust. That's what Gilbert Verdian said. We are the Internet of Trust, because Quant allows the whole world to exist that exists, all of the legacy systems that cannot speak to blockchain. Quant allows the existing world right now, everything that exists, to connect to blockchain. And blockchain represents trust, because a blockchain cannot lie. Blockchain represents truth. This is Gilbert Verdian's exact words. So that's why it's called the Internet of Trust. That's why Gilbert Verdian said we are the Internet of Trust, because it interconnects the world to blockchain, and blockchain represents trust. So it's the Internet of Trust. XRP and the Interledger protocol connect payment systems and payment networks, and that's the Internet of Value. And for those of you that are aware that Quant has built the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol with MIT and the IETF, which is the Internet Engineering Task Force, the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol is different than the Interledger protocol. The Interledger protocol and the XRP Ledger is specially designed to allow currencies or assets to go from one type of asset to the other. They're exchanging from one asset to the other using XRP as liquidity. That's what the XRP Ledger and the Interledger protocol does. The Secure Asset Transfer Protocol does not remove the need for XRP and the Interledger protocol, and it does not replace the XRP Ledger and the Interledger protocol. I'm telling you some stuff that 99.999999999% of the communities in Quant XRP are confused about, especially the Quant community. Sorry, I should say this. The Quant community that haven't done a lot of research in XRP or haven't watched my videos are thinking, if they're not believers in XRP, they haven't researched XRP, they're believing that the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol replaces the need for XRP Ledger and the Interledger protocol. When I say Secure Asset Transfer Protocol, I'm referring to the protocol that Quant has built with MIT and the IETF. But the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol is not replacing the Interledger protocol and XRP. It does not replace the need for it. What the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol does, it allows the whole world to move assets from one network to another. It allows to move an asset, so an asset, a Citibank token, can move on the JP Morgan blockchain or the JP Morgan network. It's to move an asset from one network to another so that assets can reside on any network. It is not to change one asset from one form of asset to another. It is not to swap one tokenized asset from one type of asset to another. That's not what the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol does. It's the Interledger protocol and XRP that does that. Let me repeat that. The Secure Asset Transfer Protocol is to move one asset from one network to another, not to exchange it, not to go from one form of asset to another form of asset. So they're different, and there's so much confusion there. Everybody in the Quant community that hasn't researched XRP are convinced that there's no need for XRP anymore. It's obsolete. Quant is the internet. You're wrong. Some of the top QNT researchers are wrong. Greg Lunt, for example, I love you, brother, but you have to watch my videos because the Finternet is not Quant. And you had posted something, my brother, saying that Unified Interledger Protocol is not the one that Ripple built. That is incorrect. There's only one Interledger protocol. They can call it the Unified Ledger Protocol. Like I said, they can call it they can give it a million different names. There's only one Interledger protocol, and it's Ripple that built it. So let me see. I think the video is very long right now. One more thing for you guys that are still watching. You see here, you see this diagram here? This is the MBridge CBDC project. You see how the central bank, Thai Bank, PRC Bank, HQ Bank, that's the Hong Kong Bank, and the United Emirates Banks, these are the central banks here. You see how they're closer to the MBridge here? You see how all the central banks here? So this is a central bank here. Let me use this one for example. HK, let me zoom that in for a minute. You don't want to miss this. So Hong Kong Bank here, that's a commercial bank, and HK, Hong Kong Corporation, that's a commercial bank. So that's the central bank. You notice how the central bank is always closer to the bridge? This is a central bank right here. It's closer to the bridge, right? This is the Unified Ledger right here. This is the MBridge. This is the Unified Ledger right here. This is the XRP Ledger. This is the Shared Ledger. Call it whatever you want. This is the Regulated Internet of Value right here. But notice how the central banks are all closer to the Unified Ledger, to the bridge here. And then the commercial banks are always sitting a bit further. The commercial banks are always behind the central banks. You see right here? You see here? These are commercial banks. They're all behind their respective central banks. They're behind. Don't miss this, guys. Watch one sec. Okay, so we're going to look at this document here again. You see the global RTGS right here. You see the central banks. This is Bank of Japan, Target 2, Fedwire. This is the Federal Reserve for the US. Bags, this I think is the UK. And I think this is Russia. But these are all central banks. These are the RTGS. These are central banks. See how the central banks here are right next to the XRP Ledger? They're all next to the XRP Ledger. And you see how the commercial banks here are behind the central banks. So here's the commercial banks. They're behind the central banks. You have commercial banks, central banks, and then you have the XRP Ledger. That's the MBridge right here. So let's look at that again. Exact same design here. You've got the central banks that are closer to the XRP Ledger, and then commercial banks are behind. They're behind. Central banks right next to the XRP Ledger, and then commercial banks are behind the central banks. So the central banks are between the XRP Ledger and the commercial. Yeah, central banks are between the XRP Ledger and the commercial banks. So exact same design. And I could show you 100 million pictures like that. So my friend, this is it for now. Please like and subscribe. Did you subscribe yet? I'm just teasing you. But listen, if I've earned it, please subscribe. If I haven't earned it, don't subscribe. Fair enough. So listen, guys, I love you guys. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for watching my videos. Thank you for all the love and the appreciation that you're showing me. Thank you for the support. Have a great evening, great night, great day, wherever you are. See you on the next one.